Hello everybody, welcome to Dakman Productions and welcome to Conahay Rail. So in this video, we're going to talk about the longest O-gauge car that I own. And this came about because people were commenting on the 86-foot high-cube boxcar train that I ran. About how big it was and how long the cars are. And they're pretty long for O-gauge. So we're going to talk about the longest O-gauge car that I own. What is it? Well, stay tuned to find out. But before we do, got a couple questions from the viewers that would like to have answers. So, I ran the 86-foot high-cube box car for the Bill B's 2024 Holiday Challenge. And it was a challenge on its own, as you guys heard in the video, to figure out how to get it to run without derailing, which I did. And so, one of the questions that I got in that video was, hey, Dakman, how long are those cars? And how do they compare to the 21-inch passenger car? I'm like, wow, that's a great question. I don't know, because I don't own any 21-inch passenger cars, but we have this beautiful Penn Central out. They made two different versions of these. I had both versions. One with the red and white worms and one with just the white worms on it. And the running joke is the worms ate the roadbed, and that's why the tracks fell out from underneath of the Penn Central trains. More like neglect of Penn Central, but at any rate. So, what do these cars measure? Interesting. So, if I measure just the body of the car, we're looking at 21 3/4 of an inch. Now, if I was to go coupler to coupler, let's see here. If I can go, how can I do this? Oh, I know. We'll do this way. And we'll sort of move that stuff aside so you guys can see me measuring it out properly. And I would like to know the coupler to coupler length. Wow. So we're at 23 1/4 inches coupler to coupler. And like I said, we are at 21 3/4 of an inch for the overall length of this. And sorry, I don't know the metric conversion of that because here in the United States we don't use metric measurements. So anyway, yeah, makes me think of all my schooling on learning the metric system was all for nothing. Because we were supposed to convert back then in the, when I was going to grade school, and it never happened. We had to learn liters and kilometers and millimeters and centimeters, and I don't know, it never happened. So we are still not geared up to be a totally 100% on the metric system. I don't think we ever will. It's a mix. It's kind of funny. It's weird because I know I'm getting off subject, but listen to me finish this part out. But it's a mix of, you go to the store, you buy a gallon of milk, but yet a 2-liter bottle of soda. It's like, what are we doing here? But at any rate, I'm not going to go any more into that rant. It's like, make it one or the other. But there's your answer for this. So is this the longest car that I own here on Conahay Rail and O-gauge? No. So as I mentioned in that Bill B's Boxcar Challenge, this is 86 scale feet. Again, I can't. You'll have to, if you're one of the other countries that have the metric system, you're going to have to convert that on your own. So I do have two O-gauge cars that are longer than this one, than the 86-foot high-cube box car. Let's check it out. So what possibly an O gauge could top that in scale length? What could be longer? Well, here we have the Lionel 89-foot Autorack car, and this is true scale. Now, Lionel did make a semi-scale version of their Autorack, and check out the difference. True scale 89-foot Autorack, semi-scale. The true scale just dwarfs the semi-scale version. So let's get this out of the box and we'll measure and see how long this is in comparison to the 21-inch Lionel passenger car and the 86-foot Hi-Q box car. So let's measure the body. And this car is 22.5 inches. That's the body. So let's measure out coupler to coupler like we did with the other one. Let's see what we got. Coupler to coupler, we're looking at 23.5 inches, coupler to coupler. So, is this the longest O gauge car that I own? Absolutely not. So I actually own something longer than this car. And I know you're saying to yourself, how is that possible? This has to be the longest car in O gauge. And it's not. There's actually two other cars, or we'll say units, and I'll explain here in a minute, that are longer than this in O gauge, and both are made by Atlas O. So let's get this back in the box, and we're going to talk about our focus subject of this video. So what is the longest car that I own in O gauge? Drum roll, please. On the Griswold Family Christmas movie. That movie cracks me up. But at any rate, it is, here we go, this is the box for it. Look at the size of this box. And yes, this is actually considered one car in this box. What could be in this big huge box? I know I'm dragging this out, right? It's like, come on, Dak Man, show me what you got. So here we go. This is a articulated Autorack car. And I know what you're thinking, Dak Man, that's two different cars. That's not one car. How's that your longest car? And you would be incorrect in saying that. So what is a articulated car? Well, an articulated railroad car are usually two or more cars that are put together with one truck. Instead of having two trucks and they're coupled together, now they share one truck between two or more cars. In the world of railroading, there are articulated autoracks that are connected with one truck. I always try to include the correct railroad terms in my videos, and for those who are interested in learning the true railroading terms, I know they're not always often used in model trains, but I try to look up and use the correct railroad terms. For example, when you take two locomotives and you put them together, whether it being Lionel or MTH, people were saying, yeah, I'm lashing up two of my locomotives together, or I'm creating, with Lionel, I'm creating a train with two of my locomotives. Both of those terms are actually not correct in the world of real railroading. They call that MU. And HO, they do actually use the correct term of MU for DCC controls to put two or more locomotives together. So that's just one of the things that I do also try to include, as well as historical things, is correct railroad terms. So there is a special name for the articulated truck that connects the cars together, or the cars that share one truck. It is called a Jacobs bogie. And that Jacobs bogie is special so that two cars can sit on top of it and share the same truck. Now, when you have multiple cars like this that are shared with an articulated truck, they're not individual cars anymore. Railroads refer to these cars that are connected with an articulated truck as a train set. Now, I'm not talking about the Lionel train set that you go to your hobby shop and you buy. No, I'm just trying to joke around a little bit. But, I know, bad joke, right? But anyway, yeah, so when you have, like, for example, when I put these two cars together on the single articulated Jacobs bogie, this will become one unit and considered one unit, often referred to as I mentioned, train set. So we're going to go ahead and put this together. I'll show you how long it is. So in the instructions, it gives you the 3 holes that I was talking to you about on the tabs. So you have 042, 054, and 063. I have run these before on 054 back in the day when I had 054 curves, and these ran relatively nice on 054 from what I remember. So for today, I'm going to pick 063 since I'm running 080 curves now. It's not that bad actually. You just pretty much stick this in between. Just make sure that the tabs go above the cars like that. And generally speaking, yeah, I'm going to put it in that hole. Now these curve ratings are very important. You don't want to set it for 063 if you're going to put this on 054 track, because it'll bind up on this, it'll bind up on the two cars in the curve. So here are the 2 screws that are included, and they're pretty tiny, so make sure you do this where you're not going to lose them if you drop one. I got this little tiny Phillips head. If you are a person who wears glasses, you might want to use your glasses repair screwdriver kit. There's that one. Now I gotta get this one inside. Okay. Sometimes you gotta take the screwdriver, stick it in here, and lift the tab up because it gets cocked, and it won't fit in there correctly. But it's really not that bad. I'll put this other screw in, and again I'm using the 063 holes. There we go. You can actually feel it lock in now. And that's it. We're done. Simple as that. So here you guys go. My articulated auto rack train put together. And this is by far the longest O-gauge car that I have. And notice I'm saying it singularly because, as I mentioned, it uses the single truck, the articulated Jacobs bogie, to connect both of them together. So railroads consider this a single unit, also known as a train set. So let's get this on the track and we'll talk a little bit more about articulated cars. So since this technically counts as a single unit or a single car, since it is connected by a single Jacobs bogie articulated truck, is this the longest car in O-gauge once it's put together? No, there's actually another car made by Atlas O that's actually longer than this. So in scale feet, once these two cars are put together, this is 156 feet in scale feet. That's how long this car would be in real life. 156 foot long. Atlas O also made an articulated rail car set, which was a 3-car set. So there was 3 cars joined by an articulated Jacobs bogie, which makes one big long unit or train set, as they would say in the railroading terminology. That, once it's put together, is actually 159 scale feet. So in real life, once those 3 cars were put together, it's 159 foot long, beating out the articulated Autorack by only 3 feet. So remember, it takes 3 units to beat the 2-unit articulated Autorack. So that's pretty impressive. And these are great cars. If you have a high rail layout and you have Autoracks, I highly recommend adding these to your layout. I know at one point in time, these were relatively cheap because nobody was buying them because they were so long and so big. But as I said, I ran these on 054 with no issues. But there was advantages and disadvantages to articulated cars. So the biggest advantage to articulated cars was, as you were sharing a truck, so that's one less truck you had to share for every car. So that saved money. Then you had less weight because you were sharing one truck. And then the maintenance end of it was even good because now you have one less truck to maintain. So those were all advantages to having an articulated Jacobs bogie truck. However, there were disadvantages. The biggest one, since you were sharing a truck, was weight. You couldn't put as much weight on a single truck as you could have if you had one on each end of the car and having 2 trucks coupled together. So that was the biggest disadvantage, was the weight factor of what you could load on that car. You'll notice that railroads originally used to run a 5-unit articulated rail car set or train set. They cut that down to 3 cars. So why did they do that? Well, here goes the disadvantage. One of the disadvantages of having articulated train sets. So if you have a 5-unit intermodal rail car train set and it goes through inspection and there's something wrong with one of those cars, well, you can't just go over there and uncouple that car and put it out of service. So now you have to put the whole entire 5-unit train set out of service instead of just one car. So now you're actually technically putting 5 cars out of service because of one. And if you get 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 of those sets that have problems, that's a lot of cars out of service. And that's what was happening with the railroads. And it was just too much downtime for too many cars. So a lot of railroads cut that down from a 5 car, some run a 4 car, some even only running a 3 car. The 3 car set seems to be more common now. And the last one that nobody probably even thought of was passenger cars. Yes, there was actually articulated passenger cars. And one of the most famous railroads in the world used them. And that was the Southern Pacific Daylight Train. So there was a Southern Pacific Daylight Train called the Morning Train. That particular train had nothing but articulated passenger cars on it. And they were huge. Now, I have seen those made in HO, and even in HO is probably almost as long as this car as it is now. I mean, those, once you put those HO articulated Southern Pacific Daylight articulated passenger cars together and HO, it's impressive. I do have a video of somebody at the Mars Club running the Southern Pacific Daylight Morning Train, as I mentioned, which featured nothing but articulated passenger cars. And that was even back in the 50s and 60s. And again, there was, because of the advantages of the weight and maintenance of it and the space. Let's go ahead and put together an impressive auto rack train for you guys. Let's go. Okay, before we get started, I wanted to mention that MTH also made auto racks. However, they're not to true prototypical scale length, unfortunately. I did buy some in the beginning, but I ended up selling them all off once I found out that they were not to true scale length. And I stuck with the Lionel 89-foot auto racks instead. Okay, you guys were asking for the SD80 Max. Here you go. Here's the Conrail SD80 Max locomotives. The engineers just loved the ride of these locomotives so much, they actually gave them the nickname of Cadillac because they rode like a Cadillac. Conrail mainly bought them for coal drag operations, but they did use them for other freight service as well. Conrail was also the only railroad to ever buy the SD80 Max brand new. On another note, according to the Conrail rules for conducting transportation and rules of transportation department, you are technically not allowed to put or MU 3 SD80 Max all together like this. Conrail rules were if you needed more than 2 locomotives, then you had to add on a non-SD80 Max, such as a SD70 Max. This is because of the axle weight. These SD80 Max are very heavy, especially over the axles, and Conrail was afraid of track damage, so they had a rule that if you needed to add other locomotives to the 2 SD80 Max, it had to be an SD70 Max. Also, according to those rule books, you could not add a DC locomotive to a AC traction locomotive. Conrail had found out that it does damage to the AC motors when you do that. So in their rule book, you could not add, for example, an SD40-2 to an SD80 Max because the SD40-2 is a DC variation locomotive and the SD80 Max or AC variation locomotives. So they had some interesting rules back then. Whether they were abided by or not, I don't know. I haven't watched enough. I do try to watch old Conrail videos when I have time on my hands to see if these rules were put into practice or they just put whatever together to keep the freight moving and just ignored rules. But at any rate, so we're going to go ahead and run an SD80 Max triple header for this train.
Dispatcher here. Do you copy? Over. Roger that. Please startup and stand by. Copy that, dispatcher. Starting up the engine. Out. I'm made up. Am I cleared outbound? Over. Dispatcher here. Please hold for track orders. Over. Understood. Sitting here looking for a green light. Out. Dispatcher here. You're cleared onto the main. Over. Very good. Cleared outbound. Thank you, sir. Out.
Alrighty, before I let you guys go, just wanted to mention there were two different versions of the Lionel Conroe SD80 Mac that were made, both of them in 2012. You have these units here, which are legacy full-scale size locomotives, and in the same catalog or the same year, Lionel had offered the Conroe SD80 Mac in the Lion-Master lineup, which was semi-scale. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. We'll catch you guys at the next train show. And catch you trackside. Looking forward to 2025.